He was just a wandering cultivator. He used his strength and deflected the arrow with his sword. Luo Shasha thanked Elder Bai for his help, and then hundreds of fiery arrows immediately flew at them, and the elder immediately erected a huge shield. He extended his hand forward and swept away his enemies. Some guy stood on the sword and said that he already thought that he was something if he was making such speeches, but in reality he turned out to be an ordinary fundamental realm cultivator. Elder Bai continued to use his power and asked the guy who he was. He replied that it didn't matter, but he was just a hired cultivator. He didn't need to fight because of an assignment. If he does nothing, he will spare his life. A man came out of the forest and told Madame Luo that they had not seen each other for a long time. She is only getting prettier every day. Luo Shasha called him Lei Kai and said that it was him. This whole scene was for the sake of capturing Muling Castle, wasn't it? He replied that on the one hand, this is true, on the other, it is not. In addition to all the property, he also wants her. He laughed and asked if she really thought that after she arrogantly refused him, she would get away with it. Luo Shasha looked at the elder and he waved his head to the sides, thinking that he was not his opponent. Shenji stepped forward and thought that he could no longer stand aside. Luo Shasha told him not to move. Because of them, he got involved in all this as soon as the opportunity presents itself, then let him leave here. She looked at Lei Kai and said that she would give up, but only on one condition. He would allow her daughter and this cultivator to leave. Lei Kai laughed and said that it is said that the eldest lady of Muling Castle has eyes the color of spring water, and her lips are like peach blossoms. She looks like an immortal, like an angel who descended from heaven to earth. And how can he let such a beauty go after he is convinced that the rumors do not lie? Elder Bai said that to earn money, you need to work for others. Either way, time is running out, so let him help one last time. He released his sword and began to attack, but the guy threw golden bonds at him and said that he was still too self-confident. He tied up the elder and Lei Kai, noticing the elder's blade in front of him, said that he should help him. The guy made a movement with his hands and said that he was nothing but trouble. Immediately after this, a huge stone wall rose in front of Lei Kai, stopping the sword. He looked at the sharp blade in front of his face, and then grabbed it and said that he was almost killed. Today he will teach them a lesson. Elder Bai sighed and Luo Shasha called out to the young cultivator and quietly handed him a piece of paper. Shenshi said that if she removes the seal from her hand, he will remain. He touched her shoulder and said that actually he was not young at all. He led the women behind him and Lei Sai asked where did this brat come from. The guy remained silent and Shenshi looked at them with a dissatisfied look. After that,
A strong aura began to emanate from him, and Lei Kai fell to his knees in fear. He thought, what kind of cultivation is this? Even the might of a master could not compare to the strength of this man. The guy was also scared
and asked him to spare him. Shenshi thought it was a suffocating feeling of oppression. Yuding looked at Shenshi and thought that since childhood she had been surrounded by danger everywhere, but she had never felt as calm as she did now. He is truly a master. Luo Shasha rested her head on Shenshi's shoulder and thought that she had carried such a heavy burden for so many years, but now she can rely on him and everything will be fine. How good it is. After that, she thanked Shenshi, calling him a lord, and he said that although it was said that he was not really young, calling him a lord was too much. Luo Shasha said that then they would thank him, the young master. Shenshi replied that these are quite interesting ways to say goodbye. Oh well, never mind, they'll continue. Lei Kai and the guy were kneeling in front of Shenshi, and the guy told him that he should spare him. His name is Fang Daquan, and his master is Fang Dingshan. He is the Elder King. When he returns to the sect, he will give him all his treasures. Nothing binds him to him, so let him have mercy on him. Lei Kai said that his family's spirit-gathering green lotus seed was given to him. How dare he do this to him? Fang Daquan called him an idiot and asked when he managed to obtain this seed. He threw a blade at him and Lei Kai was scared, but at that same second the blade broke into two parts and Fang Daquan began coughing up blood. Shenshi pointed his blade at them and asked if he allowed them to move. Fang Daquan called him a senior and asked him to calm down. He thought, what kind of sword is this? His blade was split into two in just one swoop. Shenshi thought that the jade bamboo sword is a signature weapon, so he can't show it. This blade deserves to be called his hidden trump card. Although it is only a deep level, but on this beginner map, he can use it for any purpose. If in the novel, for example, if a group of people jumped out to block Xiao Kai's sword strike, he could easily kill them. How unexpected, right? A boss like him walks around. They should all be scared. Fang Daquan told him that he really did not take any spirit-gathering green lotus seeds from him. He wants to set him up. Shenshi thought he would have fun playing the villain. He replied that there is no problem with this. They have 20 breaths. Whoever gives him these seeds first will be spared. Fang Daquan immediately attacked Lei Kai, and he shot him with a bow. All 3 arrows pierced Fang Daquan's chest, and he fell to the ground, and then Lei Kai showed Shenshi the seeds and said that he had found them. Shenshi smiled and said that there were still 5 breaths left. At the same moment, Lei Kai's chest was pierced by a blade and Fang Daquin said that he was so naive. Does he think that the stages of Kai refining and the fundamental stage are the same? He took the seeds from him and gave them to Shen Shi, and he told him that as they agreed, he would not kill him. Fang Daquin was delighted and thanked him for his mercy, but at that same moment Elder Bai cut his neck and he died. Luo Shasha bowed to Shen Shi and apologized for overstepping her boundaries. Shen Shi replied that it did not matter. He only said that he himself would not kill him. Death at her hands has nothing to do with him. Since he decided to help them, then naturally he will not get hung up on such trifles. Elder Bai showed Shen Shi the golden rope and said that it was the treasure of the fundamental realm cultivators. Shen Shi took it and thought that it was a lock that bound the earth, the highest spiritual level. He gave it back and said that he had lifted the inhibitions and thrown away all divine thoughts about it. Let him keep it for himself and use it with caution so that no one is killed. Elder Bai asked, the highest spiritual level? It's too valuable. It cannot be accepted by him. Shen Shi said that there is no need for unnecessary words. He does not like such things. Since he helped them during the crisis, it turns out that fate's plan was fulfilled. He still has things to do, so he has to go. He smiled and thought that this was it, that feeling. His aura is like that of a sage or the best expert in this world. Let them not be fascinated by him, because he is simply a legend. Yuding asked him to wait and asked, is he heading to Duanli Mountain? Doesn't he want to continue the journey with them? Luo Shasha said that they still had not thanked him properly. They can leisurely discuss all the details in the carriage. Shen Shi remained silent, and then smiled and agreed. Time passed. The girls were breathing heavily and feeding Shen Shi something. He smiled and said it was so sweet. He looked at Luo Shasha and said that he heard that she wanted to transfer Yuding to the Yuhua sect as a disciple. This is true. She confirmed his words and said that Elder Bai said that she had good cultivation talent, so she could take advantage of this opportunity while she was still young. Yuding told her mother that she would soon be 14 years old. She is already a big girl. Her peers are getting married at this time. Shen Shi looked down and said that she was far from small. He cleared his throat and said that he was just an ordinary cultivator. He knew some things and didn't know others. Although the Yuhua sect is run by women and sending her there seems to be the safest option, they practice a double cultivation method there. Luo Shasha covered her mouth in shock, and Yuding asked, what is this? Shen Shi replied that this information is not for children, so he will tell her about this method sometime next time. They will look at her abilities first. She agreed, and Shen Shi touched her forehead with his finger, and she thought that she could feel the warmth coming. Her body is on fire, but it's a pleasant feeling. She called out to Shen Shi, and he told her not to move. It will all be over soon. Luo Shasha blushed, and Yuding fell into Shen Shi's lap, breathing heavily. Shen Shi pursed his lips and thought that she had a rare case of empty spiritual root. She fell asleep, and he thought that a person is considered mortal if he has 5 spiritual roots, but an empty root is a sign of immortality. From birth, such people have the potential for elevation. They retain the energy of the heavenly earth well, and there is no so-called congestion. However, an empty spirit root has no attributes, so it cannot inherently control this power. Even if she cultivates, she will be able to use her abilities to improve her physical strength and health. In the cultivation world, such people always end up the same way. They become a battery and a superior double body. Countless immortal sects will covet its empty spiritual root and take advantage of it at any opportunity to advance to a higher realm. It drives people crazy. Yuding woke up and asked, what is there? He smiled and said that she had good talent. Does she want to become his student? She was surprised, and then agreed with a smile, and he said that since they are now teacher and student, then let her listen carefully. Firstly, under his guidance, she will learn to cultivate, just let her not tell anyone about it. She is also not allowed to spread information about her abilities to strangers. Secondly, he will not train her constantly. Often she will have to do it on her own, but he will help set guidelines for cultivation. Thirdly, if she encounters problems on this thorny path, then she can call him at any time of the day or night. He will give her a message stone. When activated, she will be able to contact him. He will help in any way he can. She understood. She confirmed his words, and she thought that it was quite nice to have such a cute student like her. Unlike those at his home. One is a masochist, the other is an intriguer, another is a big child and a guy. How should he cultivate under such conditions? He looked at Luo Shasha and said that Yuding's talent was special. If strangers find out about this, then trouble cannot be avoided. So let her remember, she must not show off her cultivation abilities. Luo Shasha replied that this was dangerous. Shen Shi told her not to worry, he would handle everything. And by the way, he will help her with solving another problem. He moved to another carriage and turned to Elder Bai Zhishui, and he asked what instruction he could give him. Shen Shi replied that his cultivation technique was imperfect, so it was consuming vital energy. Although fundamental stage cultivators can live for 200 years, he thinks his time is running out. They can make a deal. The elder replied that nothing could be hidden from his eyes. What should he do? Shenshi gave him a pill and said that it was Yuan Ling's pill. This contains vitality and spiritual energy. It will extend his life by 10 years, but only if he uses it for the first time. Then he will help improve his technique. If he spent the next decades diligently cultivating, he would be able to ascend to the final fundamental stage. So he will live another 100 years. Bai Zhishui was surprised and then bowed to him and said that he had almost given him a new life. Let him ask for anything. He will not refuse under any circumstances and will fearlessly take on any task. Shenshi replied that this is great. For 10 years, he should become the protector of Muling Castle. In a critical situation, he will do everything in his power. Meanwhile, Luo Shasha told her daughter that she was so happy that she became the young master's disciple. Now there is no need to give her to the Yuhua sect. They will not have to separate. Let her always obey her master. Yuding asked, didn't she tell her a story? That immortals are open and that they do not follow conventional etiquette. A master and disciple can become a pair of cultivators just like brothers and sisters. Luo Shasha blushed and asked what she was thinking about. Shenshi coughed, drawing attention to him, and smiled awkwardly. The girls immediately looked away from him, and Yuding asked when he returned. Luo Shasha said that he is truly an incredible person. He has the extraordinary ability to disappear without a trace and appear silently. Shenshi wondered why he felt like he was creating a harem when he accepted new students. He said that Bai Zhishui agreed to protect Muling Castle. Now not many would dare to threaten them. Luo Shasha was surprised and thought that the elder was a fundamental realm cultivator. She's sure it was very difficult to persuade him to come down from the mountain. However, he so easily agreed to become a defender. How strong is this young master? Shenshi said that they no longer need to go to the Yuhua sect, so they can return home. Later he himself will come to Muling Castle. Yuding approached Shenshi's face, and he told her that she didn't need to look like that, it was not his real face. He would let them look at him before he left. He showed them his true appearance and told Yuding that the technique had already been passed on to her, so let her remember to cultivate diligently. They will meet again soon. The girls were surprised by his beauty, and after that Shenshi left them and changed his appearance again, thinking that he had spent too much time. He needed to hurry up. He should be able to do it in 2 days. As time passed, Shenshi thought that Duanli Mountain was ominous. There is not a single human settlement within a radius of 100 miles, and the forest is home to many dangerous snakes and monsters. This mountain is home to the Kingland poisonous toad, whose strength is equivalent to the nascent soul stage. He looked out from his hiding place and thought that all the fruits from the 5 elements tree could enhance the quality of a cultivator's spiritual root, and the demonic monsters at the nascent soul stage could gain a human form with the help of such a fruit. This poisonous Kingland toad must be guarding the fruit and waiting for it to ripen. He lay down on the ground and thought that he was not particularly interested in the fruit itself. He came here mainly for the stone of the 5 elements, which was buried under the tree. It is capable of balancing and storing spiritual power, which is the necessary basis for Xiaokir's cultivation. Although it will not be difficult to kill demonic monsters at the stage of soul generation, as they say, it is better not to do something than to do it. He will simply take the stone when the toad leaves. The first day passed, the toad did not leave. The second day came, the toad and Shenshi remained in place. Several days passed, the toad was still in place, and Shenshi thought that this poisonous toad only eats, sleeps, and stays in the same place. Even if he continued to wait, it would not move an inch. What should he do? Maybe he should just kill it? No, violence is definitely the wrong decision. It is a matter of personal dignity. For sure, his specialty is traps and illusions. He can take advantage of this art. The poisonous toad is lazy. It probably has the same preferences as him. The poisonous toad heard the croaking and opened his eyes, seeing a very beautiful female toad in front of him. The poisonous toad immediately perked up, noticing the female, and Shenshi rejoiced at the success. The toad ran after the illusion, and Shenshi headed towards the tree, thinking that the poisonous toad was true to its natural instincts. Apparently his plan to use poison or laxative would no longer be needed. He ran to the tree and thought that he hoped the toad would not finish soon. Suddenly someone shouted that there was a wild monster there. Let it look here. At the same moment, Shenshi saw a toad above him, and it noticed him. The toad got angry and cursed and told the man to die. Shenshi pulled the sword out of the water and asked, "Why swear?" He moved forward using the stepping wave, and the toad said that he was only at the golden core stage. He did not know his place. But at the same moment, Shenshi pierced the toad's body, and it hit the stone. The toad began to tremble with fear and thought that this was impossible. Since when are human cultivators so strong? Shenshi directed the advancing wave towards the toad, and it noticed huge waves in the middle of the forest. Meanwhile, Shenshi noticed some kind of magic circle above him and thought, what idiot ruined his chance? He yells from 10 miles away. Is he glad that his ambush was chosen well or what? The toad also noticed this magic circle and said that it was such a strong pressure. The golden core cultivator is already so strong, then this attack from the nascent soul stage will flatten him, and at the same time the mountain. The toad released a magic beam from his mouth and said that it didn't matter. If he dies, it would be better if he died with dignity. The two forces headed towards each other and collided, and then there was an explosion and she thought, what the hell? Did this big step of spiritual pressure disappear just like that? Some girl came down from heaven and told the toad that he was not bad, since he managed to break her fire lotus samtai. However, this will not stop her. She will still take the 5-element fruit today. She noticed the girl and thought that it was her, Yu Wushwang, the genius of the immortal Taiyan sect, the daughter of the leader. The toad fell into the water and said, which means the human cultivators remained the same. Apparently he was mistaken. The toad pointed water blades at her, and the girl used the scorching phoenix cloak. She quickly moved upward, avoiding the attack, and the toad asked, is she scared now? How dare she encroach on his treasure? The girl chuckled and said that there was no need for her to use phoenix fire to fight the toad if she could do it personally. She attacked the toad and she wondered why she wasted her energy calling the phoenix then. All for the sake of performance? Yu Wushwang continued to aim at the toad, simultaneously avoiding attacks, and raised her sword. Suddenly she noticed something and moved to the side. She saw a water blade flying past her and said that it was very close. She almost stained her clothes. She shamefully covered his forehead with his hand and thought that he could not look at this anymore. Probably, of all the battles he has ever witnessed, this one traumatizes his brain the most. The toad blew smoke out of his mouth and said that she was just a stupid little man. Yu Wushwang covered her mouth with her hand and asked, how would a toad dare to use poison? She began to feel ill, and the toad said that if someone was poisoned by his Kinglan poison, even if it was a cultivator god of transformation, their strength would be significantly reduced for a while. Yu Wushwang began to fall, and the toad laughed before releasing its tongue and grabbing her. The toad asked, what does a nascent soul stage cultivator taste like? At that moment she used a stepping wave and the toad asked again. He no longer makes him afraid, he was just careless. The toad was thrown back into the stone and it began to curse, asking how he dared to ambush him. Where are his combat assets? The toad released a magic beam from his mouth and told him to receive a gas explosion of Kinglan poison. She stood in front of Yu Wushwang and used the stepping wave again and repelled the attack, and in the meantime, the toad jumped to the side and asked, does he only know one technique? She replied that this was not so, it was his real stepping wave. He raised his sword and used the stepping wave technique again. A powerful stream of water cut through the stone and the toad got scared and then asked how this was possible. She put away his things and told the toad that he would not kill him as long as he did not interfere. The toad began to bow to him and thank him for his mercy. She looked at the fruit on the tree and thought that he could have easily taken it if that stupid Yu Wushwang had not interfered. Then he would not have to resort to such a simple and crude method. Yu Wushwang approached him and asked for forgiveness, asking if he could share the 5-element fruits with her. He can name any price. She asked what if he doesn't want to sell it. He thought she was acting as usual. She wants to get everything she likes. Yu Wushwang blushed and then said 5 elixirs in exchange for 1 fire element of the 5-element fruit. The toad croaked displeasedly and asked, are you serious? She could immediately tell him the price, he would give all these fruits. Why did you have to fight? She covered his face with his hand and smiled wryly, thinking that the poisonous toad was storing the fruit because he wanted to transform, and the most effective means for transformation was a 5th-level drink. Now she wants to exchange everything for 1 fire element fruit, as expected of her. Yu Wushwang, his ex-girlfriend. Why hasn't she changed at all? Yu Wushwang reached into the bag and said that if he thinks this is not enough, then what about this? She showed him the stone, and the toad exclaimed that this was the spiritual stone of the Winter Mountain. Suddenly, she immediately threw this stone back into the bag and said that she could not give it away. She took a gem from the bag and asked if this was it. The toad said that this is the cloud-hidden jade. Yu Wushwang again threw it back into the bag and said that it wouldn't work then. The toad mentally turned to Shi and invited him to unite to get rid of her and take the treasure for himself. He can use poison, and he can take advantage of this beautiful girl. How does he like this idea? Shi replied that if he wants to live, he should shut his mouth. The toad croaked in fear, and she told Yu Wushwang to stop pulling out all his supplies. No one told her that she needed to be careful with such things. She looked away and said that she actually ran away. Shi sighed heavily and thought, why is he still surprised? He waved his hand towards the tree and gathered fruit at once. He threw them into the bag and Yu Wushwang sighed in frustration. Shi handed her the fruit and told her not to sigh like that. He would give it to her. She immediately perked up and asked, will he give her this fire element fruit? Shi said that when she goes out, she should hide her expensive things, otherwise people with bad intentions will notice her. If this happens, even if she is incredibly strong, she may still end up injured or killed. Now let her take the fruit and go home. Yu Wushwang took a closer look at him and remembered Shenxi's true appearance. Shenxi told her to grab the fruit quickly, and she thought, why is she thinking about him again? But this young man really looks like him. At that time, he liked to show off and was a complete idiot. He also got in her way. She replied that she could not accept this and give nothing in return, so let him name the price. She will promise him whatever he wants. Shenxi said that the 5 elements fruit is not that valuable on its own. He can exchange it for 1 transformation elixir and a Daluo gold ingot. Yu Wushwang was delighted and asked, not only does he have a high level of cultivation, he is also skilled in awakening. This is impressive. Shenxi replied that it was not much. He knows very little. She handed him the things and said that here was the transformation pill. Unfortunately, she did not take any awakening materials with her, but she will find a way to give it to him somehow. This is the mother part of the sword's guide jade. When she returns to the sect, she will send him the same one, but a daughter one. Shenxi took it and said that the value of it alone was greater than the value of the 5-element fruit and the transformation pill combined. She smiled and said that she, Yu Wushwang, was from the Taiyan Immortal sect. He saved her life, so she wants to pay him back generously. In addition to transferring items, he can communicate with her using this sword. If he has any questions, he can contact him at any time of the day or night. Shenxi smiled and said that he was Kaiyan Ren, an ordinary cultivator. Yu Wushwang rose into the sky on her sword and said that she would leave then, let him remember to contact her. He waved goodbye to her and thought she was so stupid. He told the toad that if he didn't need this transformation pill, then he could go. The toad stopped and asked, will he give it to him? Shenxi asked why he even needed this. In return, he will help him with something. The toad asked if he wanted him to be his pet or something. Shenxi took out his sword and asked, what's wrong? He is against it.
The toad replied that this is not so, he will do anything, so let him put away this sword. Shenxi threw a pill into the toad's mouth and told him to eat it. During the transformation period, the demonic beast is weak, and the unique smell of the transformation pill will attract a large number of creatures. He will protect him. The toad croaked and asked right now, but there are a lot of monsters on this mountain. Shenxi said not to worry, as long as he is around, he is not in danger.
At the same moment, a demonic wolf jumped out of the forest, but Shenxi immediately killed it and said that it was such a brave monster at the peak of the golden core. It dared to attack him. He saw many monsters around and said that considering that the nascent soul stage was able to hold back demonic beasts, then these beasts must be the strongest of all. The toad called Shenxi a master and said that although the cultivation of these monsters does not compare with his, there are too many of them. Shenxi told him not to worry, let him rather focus on absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy, and he would help him with that. He gathered power in his palm and then exhaled, and all the energy in the area began to circle around them. The toad thought that all the energy from the surrounding area was concentrated here. What a divine ability. Is he really a golden core cultivator? Is he really one of those people who carries 100 golden tablets in his stomach? Shenxi said that he was finished. He needs to think, because he doesn't have skills that deal area damage. How can he deal with so many demonic monsters? He waved his hand sharply and said that first he would do this. Magic swords appeared behind the monsters, surrounding them and creating a barrier. Shenxi said that since they are here, they will not leave now. He thought that it pleased him to say villainous phrases, even though they were addressed to these creatures. He used the advancing wave and began to attack the monsters. Finally, he swung his sword, killing several flying creatures, and asked the toad how he liked his technique. The toad thought, in what other sense? He only has one technique. Shenxi happily walked past the corpses of the monsters and told the toad that let him collect all these internal pills and materials from these demonic monsters. It all costs a lot of money. The toad thought that this human cultivator scared him too much. He should try not to make him nervous. Shenxi picked up the misty snakeskin and said that it felt very silky. In the modern world, this fabric could be used to make good stockings. Suddenly, he thought that he could probably make a weapon out of it. He's just about to give something like this to his students for competition. Shenxi imagined Han Xianpi wearing tights and thought that he should stop. This is his student. Suddenly, the toad pulled him out of his thoughts and thanked him for his protection and said that the most dangerous time had passed. Shenxi said, you are great, he will transform soon, so he needs to give him a name. He's male, right? The toad became embarrassed and replied that she was female. Shenxi asked what the hell. Then why was she attracted to his white jade frog illusion? The toad was very surprised and asked, does Zio Bai Bai really not exist? She is her first love. Shenxi tiredly covered his face with his hand and said that when the time comes, she will find the real one. The toad was delighted and asked, is this true? Then he can give her a name. Shenxi said that her current body resembles jade, like black ink. Then he will call her Zio Bai. The toad indignantly asked, where are his manners? Meanwhile, at Muling Castle, Luo Shasha turned to the clan leaders and said that they were all elders of Muling. Do they think their actions put her in charge of the castle? The elder slammed his palm on the table and said that this is all for the sake of the Jade Kingdom family. This can be considered as providing support. He no longer talks about the sixth prince, who is interested in the young lady, which will also benefit Yuding. Another elder agreed and said that they had already accepted the royal family's wedding gifts. If they don't keep their promises now, he's afraid they'll make them angry. It would be irreparable damage to their castle. Another elder said that they say that in the Jade Kingdom, there are 3 cultivators, each of whom is successful in their own business. They cannot offend them. Another elder said that he noticed that the young lady also returned with them, which means she did not join the sect. And the sixth prince is waiting outside the gate. If she agrees, then their castle Muling will have an unlimited future. Luo Shasha raised her tone and said that was enough. They agreed to the marriage without notifying either her or Yuding, while hiding behind the well-being of the castle. She slammed her palm on the table and said that Muling's 3 big halls are losing money every year, but their pockets are getting wider and wider. Do they think she doesn't know that? She will never agree to this marriage. Suddenly the prince entered the hall and said that this was an interesting statement. He would never have thought that the body of the Lady of Muling Castle was as hot as her temperamental character. He definitely likes it. He shook his head to the side and asked how they could threaten such a beauty. It is said that the fiancé of the Lady of Muling Castle passed away before they got married. Her body is still pure. What a pity it will be if, having all this, she does not find a son-in-law. He is a man who doesn't like to beat around the bush. Since the two of them are not related by blood, they can call themselves sisters and then marry him. On his part, guarantees will be provided that Muling Castle will henceforth increase in strength, and the Jade Palace will not be left without support. Luo Shasha turned to His Highness the Sixth Prince and said that she was sorry to disappoint him, but she refused him. She then called out to Elder Bai and said that he should send them out. Elder Bai agreed and walked towards the prince. The prince's guard came to his defense and said that he was in the middle stage of the fundamental realm. The prince asked what was going on. Didn't he say that there was no cultivator in Muling Castle to protect them? The guard replied that it was Bai Zhishin. And contrary to rumors that he had little time left, his sword Kai had only improved. The prince immediately made a respectful gesture towards the elder and greeted him, and then said that he was the 6th prince of the Wang Tang Jade Kingdom. He is ready to offer an amount 3 times more than what he has paid at Muling Castle. Elder Bai apologized and said that he was the protector of this place. He has his own duties here, so he asks them to leave. The prince's guard said that they were not his opponents. The prince said that they had to leave. Meanwhile, Shen Shi and Xiao Bai sat under the roof and watched everything. Xiao Bai said that this idiot really left. What a coward he is. Shen Shi said that she didn't understand that these kind of teenage mutant ninja turtles were the hardest to deal with. Soon Muling Castle will face disaster one after another. Xiao Bai asked, doesn't he have a student there? Why not help him and solve all these problems? Shen Shi replied that if he got rid of the prince, then he would have to deal with the royal family and then the immortal sect. Even if he destroys them, there are even stronger cultivators behind them. He is very familiar with this kind of routine. If they fight in a series of battles, then the reader will not get any pleasure from reading it. Now Muling Castle has Bai Zhishui, and the Jade Kingdom has 3 cultivators. Despite this, the chances are approximately equal. Of course, there will be tension between them, but there should be no serious conflicts, so everything is for the better. And Luo Shasha is a cautious character. She will not take risks. Xiao Bai asked, is the cultivator world so dangerous? Shen Shi confirmed her words and said that she therefore needed to be taught how to hide and disguise herself well. Let her be careful and not tempt fate, otherwise she will become a fried chicken. Xiao Bai replied that she was a toad, not some kind of chicken. Shen Shi quickly disappeared from his previous place and said that he would take her to his student. Time passed. Yuding sat on her bed and meditated. She continued to meditate, and after a few seconds she opened her eyes and saw her master sitting at the table and pouring tea into cups. Shen Shi said that she worked hard to reach the first stage of cultivation in such a short time. She did well. Yuding immediately flew off the bed and pounced on him, spreading her arms wide. She sat on top of him, and Shen Shi was frightened by her sudden actions, and then patted her on the head and said that nothing had passed since the last meeting. Why was she so worried? She replied that she had not seen him for 10 days. She was very bored. Last time he left early, as the cultivation method showed her. He didn't even allow her to express her due gratitude. He said that if she behaves well, then let her speak. When she needs something, he will definitely satisfy her requests. Yuding asked anything. She imagined them both in bed and giggled contentedly, and then blood sprayed out of her nose, and she exclaimed worriedly, is she okay? Drops of blood began to fall on her skirt, and she said that everything was fine. She just ate too much. She was probably overexcited. Shen Shi smiled wryly and thought that he hoped this nosebleed did not mean what he thought. He said he needed to show her something. He showed her the toad and said it was Xiao Bai. Let her not be fooled by this cute toad. In fact, her strength is equal to the nascent soul stage. He gives it to her when he is not around. She will look after her. Tears appeared in Yuding's eyes, and she asked, is he leaving again? He doesn't want to be with her anymore? She called her stupid and asked how he could reject her. Suddenly, the cup of tea fell to the floor and broke into pieces. Luo Shasha, who dropped that cup, looked at her crying daughter sitting on Shen's lap in shock, and then looked lower and saw drops of blood on her skirt. One thought flashed through her head, and she understood how it looked from the outside and told her that he could explain everything. Luo Shasha immediately left her daughter's room and slammed the doors behind her, and she thought that this was bad. Meanwhile, Luo Shasha walked through the castle grounds, clutching the fabric of her skirt in rage and saying that he was a monster. Yuding is only a year away from coming of age. She can't believe that he couldn't bear it. He's just a monster. She stopped and asked if she was starting to look too old. She suddenly appeared behind her and asked how she could say such things. Madam is very young and beautiful. Luo Shasha turned around and said with a smile that he must be joking. She asks for forgiveness for attacking him like that. She replied that it was just a misunderstanding. His relationship with Yuding is purely student-teacher. Spots due to her nose bleeding. He doesn't know why this happened out of the blue, but still. Luo Shasha called out to him and said that she had not said anything yet. He did not need to justify himself. She replied that he was afraid that she would misunderstand. Luo Shasha touched her hair and asked what exactly. She approached him and asked why he was so worried about her feelings. She didn't know what to say and thought, is she teasing him? They are both already adults, so what is he afraid of? He put his arm around her waist and, calling her madam, said that he thought she would misunderstand. Luo Shasha said that he should just call her Shasha. Then she asked, doesn't madam sound more passionate? She smiled and said that now she understood what kind of games he liked. In fact, it was just a figment of Shen's imagination that flashed through his mind while he was thinking about the answer. He looked at Luo Shasha in embarrassment and then ran away and said that he had left something for Yuding. She can use it too, she has all the necessary instructions. It's time for him. He quickly flew away on his sword from Muling Castle and thought, why did he panic at the most crucial moment? Now that he thought about it, it looked terribly awkward. Next time he will do exactly that. Suddenly a flying sword appeared in front of him, and she saw a message window in front of him. He received a message from Yu Wushwang in which she asked, is he here? She had just returned to the Taeyun Immortal sect. She's safe now. She knows that he's probably busy, so she won't distract him anymore. Let him write to her more often if he can. Does he have any questions? She thought, what the hell? Messaging app. What kind of installation? His ex wants to start dating online. Meanwhile, Yu Wushwang was bathing in the hot spring and said that as she thought, he accepted. She's an idiot. Does he think he can hide from her? She's been looking for him for so long, she'll see where he runs this time. And why did he then leave without even saying goodbye? Time passed. She returned to Erbai Peak. A bamboo forest appeared on the mountain, among which there was a hot spring, and his students bathed in it. Kang Yulin approached Ming Tian and said that she had them so big. Will she let her touch it? Ming Tian did not agree and said that she should go to Han Xianpi. She has the same ones, if not more. Han Xianpi asked what she wanted to do. Kang Yulin attacked her and said that she had better give up right away. Han Xianpi screamed, but Danla hugged Kang Yuling from behind and said that Kang Yulin had also grown up enough. Kang Yuling asked what she was doing. Danla started touching her and said that she heard the master touched her too. Does her touch feel the same as his? She laughed and Kang Yulin said that it was not so. Let her forgive her. She began to struggle and threw some piece of clothing aside. She caught the clothes and asked where the bamboo forest on Erbai Peak came from, and especially this source. What the hell is going on here? Zio Kir approached him and said that the master had returned. It was she who prepared the hot spring for him. She turned around and asked with an awkward smile, is that how it is? Then, after everyone has finished their procedures, he will also take a plunge to recover from the journey. Zio Kir hugged him and disagreed, and then she looked up at him and said that she did this so that he could comfortably watch her older sister's bodies while they were taking a bath. She tried for him. Does he like her now? She smiled and wanted to say that he liked it, but
he stopped and began to beat her, saying that let her grow up. How dare she even use such a charm technique on her master? Where did she learn such dirty tricks? Zio Kir squeaked and said that she was wrong. She had never been able to cultivate, and when she realized that the sex tests were coming, she had no choice but to learn self-defense techniques. She said that even if that was the case, she shouldn't use it on the master. Let her not worry about cultivation. He came down from the mountain
to help her solve the problem. Let her come to his room later. Zio Kir agreed, and she looked to the side and said that it was time for the next thing. He returned to his residence and called out to Master Bai. Bai Ran greeted him and said that she had taken the liberty of visiting him. She apologizes for disturbing me. She walked to the door and told her not to worry, they could talk inside. He took her inside the residence, and she thought that she had heard that She is chaotic, has a high cultivation level, is ignorant, and is a tyrant towards his disciples. However, now the master does not make others feel uncomfortable. Rather, on the contrary, next to him she forgets about her problems. Probably a lot of people like Shenji. What is she thinking about? Shenji apologized and said that he had almost nothing to treat her with. He pointed to the table and said that his students had recently dried several stems of Edelweiss flowers, which could be brewed and drunk as tea. Let her sit down. She sat down at the table and said that she had come to thank him for the day of the Immortal Seedlings Conference, for recommending Weikin to her. She started pouring tea and replied that it was nothing. This is not the first time he says that she is the most suitable teacher for this child. She said that her position in the sect is low, and the disciples who are trusted in her are practically mediocre. Getting a good gift is almost impossible. His cultivation is high and deep. In his arsenal are the spiritual roots of water and wood. She knows that he cared about her when she wanted to give Weiking to her. She appreciates it, really appreciates it. Compared to Erbai Peak, her Lingzhu is nothing. There's nothing worthwhile there. She handed him the box and said that by the will of fate, she was able to get an iceberg of bamboo jade that would definitely suit his technique. This is her gift as a token of gratitude. She hopes he doesn't mind. Shenji was surprised and asked how is this possible. This is such a valuable thing, she needs it more. Bairan said that if he accepts this, she will always remember his kindness. Shenji thought that she seemed to be gentle and well-spoken, but in reality she was a woman who was soft on the outside and hard on the inside. She is so determined that even death cannot make her doubt herself for even a second. He took the box and said that he accepted it. If she encounters difficulties, then she can always turn to him. Let her remember this. Bairan looked at him gratefully, and he asked if there was anything else he could do to help her. Let her speak, no need to be shy. She replied that she would like to create a magical treasure for Wai King before the upcoming sect training. She took out the bag and said that she had heard that he was skilled in cultivation, so she wants to ask him for an immortal sword. She took care of all the necessary materials. She took the bag and thought that she had prepared so much. She gives her all to this student. He agreed and said that with this amount he could make several magical treasures for his students as well. Bairan bowed to him and said that then let him accept her gratitude. If he needs anything from her, she will help. Shenji said that there is no need for such formalities, let her help herself. They started drinking tea and Bairan looked up at him. Shenji thought that it was such a pleasure to calmly drink tea with the beautiful Bairan, it was not bad. Suddenly he felt something and thought it was not good. The reign of suppression between spiritual connections weakened again. He could barely stay at the God stage. He needs to quickly accelerate the rhythm of the Tao throughout his body. Bairan wanted to tell him something about tea, but suddenly she felt a surge of strength and asked, "Is this it?" She began to meditate and Shenji, looking at her, thought that the heavenly elder brother was too lenient to give out insight like that. Can those around him absorb the result of his dispelling? Does this mean that he can take on the tasks of a substitute coach? This rhythm of the Tao of spiritual connection happens once a month and 10 days, even more often than visiting his aunt. If he himself dissipates, will it help the disciples to cultivate? Bairan opened her eyes and then looked around and asked in surprise, did she just have a breakthrough? Shenji smiled and congratulated her on this, saying that her good preparation and this moment of enlightenment helped her skip the intermediate stages and go straight to the final stage of the golden core. From now on, she must be addressed as Master Bairan. Bairan thanked him, and he replied that there was no need for gratitude. This is all the result of her hard work, she deserves it. Shenji thought that he was still in shock that the suppression of his realm had caused the Tao rhythm and spiritual connections to leak out. Bairan called out embarrassedly and asked if she could come here more often. His tea is very tasty. Shenji replied that he would be glad to see her at any time of the day or night. After that, she left, and he told Xiaoqier to come over. She approached him and asked why he was so charming. He took her hand and asked how her cultivation was going. She replied that she had tried so many methods. When the spiritual energy entered her body, it dissipated after 5 spiritual cycles, not a bit remained. It was a shame that she wasted the gathering elixir he gave her. He called her stupid and told her not to worry. He put an amulet on her and said that he had found a way to help their cultivation, let her try it. She tried and felt something, and then grabbed the master's hand and said that it was better. Shenji smiled and said that he also prepared a mutated Edelweiss for her if she ever reaches a dead end with cultivation. Xiaoqier showed him a long hair and said that this hair was different in color from his. Is this from a woman? Shenji looked away and she told him not to worry so much. For a man of his age, this is completely normal, but there are slutty women, he should not be fascinated by them. If he chooses a girl for himself, then let him first tell her about it. She ran away and she shouted after her, "What is she saying?" Let her go and cultivate quickly. In response, she shouted that she would take the Edelweiss with her. Shenji sighed and thought that she was so impudent and two-faced very undisciplined and uncontrollable. So, the problem of Zyokir's cultivation has been solved, and the world path has finally been restored. He looked at the bag and thought that when Daluo's gold of frost-free jade arrives, then it will be time to close and create magical treasures for his disciples. 3 months later, the main peak of the Shanding sect, Dangtian Peak. The elder said that Diking scouts had recently been spotted near the spiritual veins that were under their control. Another elder told the patriarch that they seem to have become more active lately. The 2 small sects closest to them have already been absorbed. No doubt they intend to come into conflict with them too. The patriarch said that Diking Master Huang Wusheng's level is close to his, and he hasn't heard of any breakthroughs from him recently. Without effect, they cannot start a war. This way they will not have an advantage, but they must still be prepared for any of their actions. He turned to the great elder and said that they would have to disturb him and send him on a journey. Let him go to Dongming Pavilion and Yuhua sect and explain the whole situation there. They will hope that in the future, when the time comes, they will be able to gain their support. The great elder replied that he was ready to go to the pavilion, but would probably refuse to visit the sect. There is very little time allotted for him in the world. He hopes for his understanding. The patriarch thought that 10 years ago he was sent to Yuhua as an ambassador to announce important statements, but for some reason he stayed there for a long time. He later returned severely emaciated and his cultivation level had declined. He replied that it would be so. The elder said that a cultivator who would go to the Yuhua sect must have great strength. This is the only way they can show the sincerity of the Shanding sect. Bairan is located on the last building of the Golden Core and has sufficient skills for this task. The patriarch said that she had only recently made a breakthrough, send her there alone. The elder interrupted him and said that maybe they could ask Shenshi to come with her. He believes that experts at the perfect Golden Core stage will be enough to gain the respect of the sect. The patriarch did not answer and thought that this man wanted to cause them trouble. He closed his eyes and said that Master Shenshi was still closed. Suddenly, they heard some kind of strong roar, and the elder asked what it was. An immortal treasure appeared. Another elder said it was in the direction of Urbay Peak. The elder said that this was not it after all. He was scared to death. Although there is a thread of Tao rhythm here, it is most likely a high-grade Xuan treasure. The patriarch looked in surprise towards Urbay Peak and remained silent. Meanwhile, at Urbay Peak, Shenshi left the room and said that he was careless and performed the suppression poorly. He even almost created an immortal treasure. How many problems would he have if this really happened? His students greeted him and Shenshi asked how they were doing. Danla replied that her younger sisters took their cultivation very seriously, especially Zyokir and Han Xianpi. They both improved their skills and are now at the 5th level of the Kai Awakening Realm. Shenshi walked up to Zyokir and asked, "Is it already the 5th? Not bad, now he can consider them to be average cultivators, they are great." Danla put her hand on Zyokir's shoulder and said that the master just came out, so his spiritual energy is not stable, don't let her stand too close to him. But Zyokir didn't listen to her and said that she was just joking. Now her 5 elements have been corrected and specialize in dispersing and influencing spiritual energy, so her words have no meaning. A spark flashed between them and Shen. She said that Danli was also great. She already had the 2nd level of the fundamental realm. Danli approached him and said that it was all thanks to his technique. This greatly helped her make a breakthrough. Zyokir stood aside and was angry, and Shenshi asked, has she already mastered the softness around her finger? Danla confirmed his words and said that she also understood the meaning of this technique. She can finally make changes based on the characteristics of her spiritual power and develop a stronger and more suitable technique for her. Shenshi smiled wryly and thought that the method he taught her was just an expression of goodwill. There is no deep meaning here and there is no merit to it. Let her not talk nonsense. He replied that creating her own cultivation method is very good, but first she must show it to him. Danla replied that she was ready to demonstrate, but she would have to disturb her little sister and ask her for a little help, since she was an adept at dispelling the influence of spiritual energy. Zyokir agreed and said that she should be kind and show mercy. Danla smiled and replied that it was natural, it was just a demonstration. Shenshi thought that it was obvious that they were in a cultivation novel, but then why did their sentences sound like this was a palace drama? The students stood opposite each other and Zyokir told Danli to be gentle with her. Danli agreed, and Shenshi began to watch them. Suddenly a thought came to his mind, and he told Zyokir that he had refined the immortal sword. Let her try whether it suits her or not. Zyokir's eyes lit up, and she asked, is this true? She is grateful to him. She took it in her hands and said that this immortal weapon was somehow strange. Isn't it for cutting wood? Shenshi replied that everything was correct. She should not doubt the products of her master. Kang Yuling examined the weapon and thought that she could feel the strongest Tao rhythm flowing from this weapon directly into her body. It was truly of the highest level. She waved her weapon and suddenly Kang Yuling screamed, causing everyone else to be scared. Shenshi turned around and asked, what's wrong? Kang Yulin said that her older sister was fighting with her younger sister. Shenshi sighed wearily and replied that he knew he was grateful to her. Ming Tian approached Kang Yulin and suggested that she move away a little. It was dangerous here. Danla prepared for battle and thought it was time to see the result of the exercise. She stomped her foot and the ice stream headed towards Xiaokir, but she prepared herself and cut the ice chains in time. But at the same moment, other icy ones appeared above her, and Ming Tian said that this was strengthening spiritual power. Such an ability
Appears only at the fundamental kingdom stage. How does she do this? Danla thought, is it really all because of this woodcutter? Because of this immortal
weapon? Xiaokir swung her weapon, breaking the ice chains, and rushed forward. Danla thought that she had broken the ice prison, something that even someone at the fundamental realm stage could not do. But how? She's still inexperienced. She waved her hand, and then icy forces accumulated around Xiaokir, and Danli wanted to tie her up. She thought that the spell had obviously undergone many changes. If she continued like this, the technique would become a top-class spiritual spell. Her talent and diligence frightened him. In the original plot of the novel, Danli did not have such a strong understanding. Other than that, she didn't cultivate very actively. Why is this girl now motivated to fight until victory? Why is she now becoming a hard-working genius? Isn't it better to just sit back? Danla looked at the master and thought that only by becoming stronger and stronger could she get closer to him. When she becomes more powerful and stronger than him, he will not have the opportunity to refuse her. Xiaokir smiled and said that she seemed distracted. After that, she swung the weapon, and she thought that this was a special skill, a chopping spiritual wheel. This skill can only be acquired by the protagonist of the Golden Core stage. How could she comprehend this after the 5th level of Kai cultivation? Even if Danla has a mutated spiritual root, it definitely does not go beyond the 5 elements.